Hello and welcome to the Bobby Moore Stand, and we've got a special show today with a special guest. You'll recognise him, Kriss Akabusi, and we've got some other Chris as well. We'll ignore him for now.
I knew that was going to happen.
You can't ignore Chris.
It was so going to happen, wasn't it? He was so going to say that.
Always.
Yeah.
So Chris, thanks for joining us. I'm going to we're going to talk about something that I think you're going to know quite a lot about, and can tell us. We'll learn probably quite a bit from you. Before we go there, though, let's talk a little bit about you. For those of you viewers who have been living on Mars and don't know who Kriss Akabusi is, I'm of a certain age, and when I was growing up, Chris and his kind were household names. We all knew who Kriss Akabusi was, and everybody used to watch the Olympics and the athletics and everything else because we didn't have, we didn't have much options on the TV, did we? That ain't the reason we watched it. We love sport, and this was use first surfaced, Chris, in 1984 at the Los Angeles Olympics as a serving sergeant in the army.
Absolutely.
How did that come about, Chris?
So I joined the army at 16 years of age. I've been. My story is my parents came across from Nigeria in the 50s. They were students. They went back to their country in 1962. I was born in the UK. There was a war in Nigeria. I ended up in a children's home, and I joined the army straight from the children's home, 16 years of age. Brand new, changed my name from Keithy to Chris, and met a sergeant who got me into athletics. So that's how I got into the British Army, 1975.
Fantastic. That's just amazing. And I mean, I remember back then because that was like the Carl Lewis games, wasn't it? That was like, that was massive. It was huge. It was all over the media. And, like I said, the Olympics were enormous back then. They were a massive event. Still are, but they were bigger then. And what kind of feeling did you get lining up in an Olympic final? An Olympic final? What did that do to your kind of, you've gone through the rounds and everything else, but then you get to an Olympic final and then you come out with a silver medal at the end. What kind of self-belief and motivation do you need to achieve that in such a short space of time, the route you took?
Yeah. So to be fair, in 84, that Olympic silver was in the 4x400 meter relay. And it was just a surreal event because I'd only been doing athletics for 5 years.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself on Team GB. It's just a massive moment when you actually got a letter from the Duke of Edinburgh and you're invited and you're part of the team. Wearing the kit is just an amazing thing. Putting on the vest, lions, badge, you just feel brilliant. And then, once you've got over the fact that you are with Carl Lewis, Sebastian Coe, Edwin Moses, Daley Thompson. Once you get over the fact that you are in the arena with his world-class athletes, it's about getting down to business. And I was very lucky at the time. People like, you won't know them now, but, Gary Cook, Todd Bennett, Phil Brown, these guys were sort of 2 or 3 years ahead of me. And we had a real tight, it's about the team, a real tight team. And we were surprised by joy. At that time, the 400 meter runners were known as not being particularly great as individuals. But you put the stick in our hand, and we could always go the extra mile. And so because it's in the relay, I was with Todd, Phil and Gary, and we had a stick in our hand, we knew we could go the extra mile. But still, the silver medal was a massive surprise.
Yeah. I mean, it must have been mind-blowing standing on a podium, your first Olympics.
Yeah.
That's just, I just can't, I don't know, from a pure emotions perspective, it's the sort of thing, I mean, it must give you amazing self-belief, but also a little bit of, how the hell did I get here?
Well, it made me want, what it gave me was, I want more of this.
Yeah.
I want more of this. You're on the podium, it's your first major, Olympic Games. You've obviously done very, very well. You're euphoric. I'm young, relatively speaking. I'm 24, 25, new baby at home. It all just happened in a spin, and you can barely believe it. You see the montage of you and the boys up on the great big screen. You hear the cacophony of sounds. To be fair, it all just rushes past you. It's just a massive. I don't want to swear. I don't really swear, but it messes with your head. This is actually really happening. It's me through my own eyes, and you're feeling and seeing, experiencing all this stuff. It goes by too quickly because you can't rationally take it in because it's just happening. It's just all happening. Does it make sense?
Described it. Yeah, you just described it exactly how I imagine it would be.
Yeah. You know? Because you're normal. When I say you're normal lad, I know everyone's normal, but you're just a normal bloke. You know.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, you've left school, Edmonton County, London N9. You've left school. You've bunged yourself in the army, and 5 years later, you're on the podium. It's just it wasn't what I dreamt about when I left school.
Kriss, how did your life change after that moment when you picked up that silver?
Well, first of all, it made me in myself become more professional. I mean, obviously, I've had to work very hard to get there, but athletics was still a sport. It was still a game. It was something that I'd found that I was decent at and worked. I was getting a modicum of success. But once you are there and you're Olympic silver medalist, and this is one of the tough things when you're a sportsman, because you achieve something great, Olympic silver medal, but straight away you've got to have another goal. You can't sit back on your laurels. Right. Yeah. I'm 24, 25. Right. Another 4-year program. I want Olympic gold this time. I want to be an individual next time. You know, I want to make sure I'm an individual next time. And you've got all these goals. I've got to be a European champion. I've got to work towards a European champion. So you're always raising the bar performance. You can't sit back and go, wow, that's it, I've done it. So it's like, when I say a burden sounds negative. It's not negative, but it is something that you carry, and you've got to professionalize your life. And athletes are very, very selfish, very self-centered. That's it. From that moment onwards, my whole world was geared around to me performing. That is, I was a young husband, I had a wife, and I said a young baby. They had to subordinate themselves to my sport.
Yeah.
So it makes you feel selfish. I hope I'm not doing it down, but you have to be selfish.
So how did it change your life with regards to essentially coming from, as you mentioned, your background to suddenly being in the limelight like that? You know, how did that impact you mentally, right? Because that's going to be a massive shift in terms of your lifestyle as well, right?
Yeah, but I was a squaddy. I was a soldier. I was a young sergeant, and mate, squaddies, don't worry, they keep you grounded. I mean, let's put it this way: I come back from Los Angeles, and 3 weeks later, I'm out in the Hulu. Us out in the woods, digging trenches, putting up a bivouac, and pretending to fight the Russians.
Wow!
You're soon grounded. Don't worry about that.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So you know, but that was good for me to be grounded. It was good for me. You know, and of course, it changes in as much as. Okay, I was living in Southampton at the time. So people in Southampton know you as a local sportster, but nobody in UTB really does. They do now. All of a sudden, you're doing the dinners. You're doing. There's something called the Wogan Show. You're on the Wogan Show. You're doing all the shows. So you get a bit of a profile.
Yeah, it's amazing. So you before we go on to what I think, I don't know whether you think it's your most special race, but the 1991 World Championships final, which is what you mentioned, you spoke about at length in your Oxford Union address, which was really good. But let's just mention individually, are you still a British record holder at the 400 metres?
Gary,
are you still?
I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it, Gary. But certainly 34 years after breaking the British record, I still hold that title. Thank you.
That's amazing,
mate.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's just amazing. Yeah. It really is. And again, you don't realise. It's going to again sound big-headed, but you don't realise when you're doing it how good you are.
Yeah.
You don't realise how good you are. You know, I'm just making my own personal best, but I'm surrounded by Linford Christie, Sonny Gunnell, Colin Jackson. Jonathan Edwards, Kelly Holmes, Fatima Whitbread, Tessa Sanderson, these Sebastian Coe, Steve Cram, Steve Ovett. These were the great athletes.
Well, you weren't so bad, Chris. Let's be honest.
Yeah. You know what? You don't think that of yourself.
No,
There's a saying: you compare yourself amongst yourself, and I compare myself with these guys, but most of those guys' records have been broken. Mine still exists. So I realized that in my particular event, I was as good as they were. I just didn't understand it. I didn't know it. So I mean, it is just amazing. Look, it's got to go, because when I broke the British record, it had been the Olympic record 22 years earlier. But certain circumstances, our clothing, the track, our spikes had changed, which gave me a competitive advantage against David Henry. Well, the kids today, they've got a competitive advantage. So I am expecting it within the next 10 years to get busted. It has to. But I'll tell you what needs to happen, Gary and Chris. It needs somebody who is running the 400 meters right now, who's not quite good enough. So he might be able to run 44 seconds. To take that risk, and it is a risk, to change to the hurdles, and they will break it. At the moment, you've got guys who can only, they can only run 46, 47 seconds for the flat, where you've got no chance to break the British record, if that's what you can do.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. I mean, it's such a tough event, But bad enough running 400 meters. That's apparently a bad thing for the lactic acid, isn't it? For God's sake, imagine what it's like with hurdles.
No. Actually, no, Gary. I disagree. I believe it's easier running. People don't like it, because I know you've got every 35 meters you've got an obstacle to cross. So it rationally it sounds like it's harder, but actually it's easier, because you haven't got time to feel the lactate. You haven't got time to feel the oxygen depletion. What you've got to do is bam. Bam. You've got something to do. And it's only the last 100 meters you begin to realize, when the legs go wobbly, and you feel that you actually begin to feel how difficult it is. But then you've trained yourself to be able to be on automatic power. So actually, I found it easier than the flat 400.
Yeah. No. Well, I don't know how to relate to that in any way, shape, or form. But,
I wouldn't even make the first hurdle, honestly.
You try and find a bit of common ground. I can't. Hobbling around the Amsterdam Marathon really slowly, I suppose. But that's about it.
I ran to the shops about half an hour before this, and that was a struggle. So no, I can't really relate, Chris.
So we're going to transfer the conversation in a minute into football. But firstly, I want to focus on this. And I've got video but no sound. It's the last lap from you taking the baton to chasing down the 400-meter world champion, right?
Antonio Pettigrew, yeah.
And he's really a 200-meter specialist. And they hand over this time. Still America and Britain, hardly anything between them. A tremendous battle this really is between them. And it's going to be Pettigrew against Akabusi on the last leg. Pettigrew, the individual champion. Akabusi, bronze medalist in the 400-meter hurdles.
44.2 for Regis.
200 meters to go. Pettigrew under threat. Surely Akabusi can't do this, can he, against the 400-meter specialist. USA 1, Britain 2. The race for the bronze medal being led by the Jamaicans at the moment. Pettigrew hung on. Here comes Akabusi on his outside. Kriss Akabusi trying to drive for the goal. Pettigrew is tying up. And Kriss Akabusi, this will be a tremendous victory if he does, and he does. It's Britain's gold. USA silver. And Jamaica get the bronze medal. And that was a tremendous run from Kriss Akabusi, the 400-meter hurdler, to beat the individual 400-meter champion on the last leg. 2 minutes 57.54, and Britain upset the Americans and take the gold.
I will put the version with sound into the video afterwards, right, and then take all this nonsense out. But that is just how the hell you found that. What did you kind of sense a weakness as you were coming round? Were you just running for yourself, or did you notice a bit of a weakness in him that you could go after him?
Both. Look, it was a strategic plan. Although he was the best in the world, 400 meter flat running and 400 relay are two different things. And the strategy was for me to be on his jock strap, and because of that, there's something called the peloton effect. And if you ride bikes, you'll know it. You get that little vortex.
Yeah.
I'm inside there, so he's having to break that wind, and I'm getting an easier ride. And when you do your training reps, that's what you do. So I knew that I'd have that advantage, and then he's got to think about when he's going to go. And he decided much too late. I think he's a little bit complacent. And then when he went, I went past him, and I've got my 400 meter hurdle strength. So I've got strengths too. And this is the thing, whenever you're in some sort of competitive scenario, you've got to play to your own strengths. And in this case, he played to my own particular strength, which is my strength.
And was you thinking that at the time? Or did you think it afterwards?
No. I mean, we knew what the plan was, and of course, like I said earlier on, you get overtaken by the ambience and by this. There's a guy called Machinks Mahali, who wrote about flow, and when you're in the flow, you're not running by numbers; it's just happening. And all I remember was being big. And I thought we were jogging because it was just like an out-body experience.
Oh, wow.
And then when I got around that second turn, I knew that I was ready to let it go. The only time I didn't believe, the only time I had some doubt was when I got past him, 20 yards from the line, and then all of a sudden, I just come back to myself and I realized what was happening, and the batten's got a flu, so you can hear the sound, and I could hear him trying to come back, and that's when I nearly lost it. So it was an amazing experience.
Kriss, explain that feeling. Sorry to interject there, Gal, but I'd love to understand if you can articulate and put into words that feeling once you cross that finishing line, right? How can you explain that feeling?
Oh, well, I mean, it was tremendous. I mean, first of all, John jumps me, Derek jumps me, Roger's going mad. Now, Roger is this like white guy, middle class white guy. He's nice and stage. He's gone absolutely ballistic. You know, the crowd's going ballistic, and it's just an extreme. You're going mad. I mean, everyone's watched it, but you're saying, "Have I watched it?" I mean, it was just a pantomime. It was just amazing. It was just amazing for it to come to, because all of us at times make plans. Few of us see them come to fruition at that level, and it was just an amazing experience. It's actually very difficult to explain, other than what I said in the commentary. It was just an awesome experience.
Other than you don't want John Regis jumping on you, really, do you?
No, not joining two chest Regis. No.
Right, so looking back at that experience now, with grown-up eyes, how much of that success was down to, first of all, you've got the individual responsibilities of the training and adherence to the tough schedules and everything else, and following through on your plan, and then you've got another side of it, which is coaching and leadership. How much of that kind of coaching and leadership did you depend on? Was there a leader in the team, in the team of runners, and was there an important coaching layer above?
So all of the above. Clearly, every single athlete starts off with a coach, and in athletics is different to football as much as the coach has a much bigger significance to when you're starting than when you get towards right at the end of your professional career, because when you're starting, you know so little, and towards the end, you know a lot. And towards the end, what happens is your coach is the eyes who steps back with a helicopter view from the balcony on a dance floor and can see the little things that might be going wrong before they do, so that you can both then tweak with the technique to ensure that you So whereas at the beginning you know nothing, towards the end there's a symbiotic relationship between you and your coach. And then what's important about the coach in this relay event is then bringing the desperate groups, like John was in London, Roger and I were in Southampton, Derek was in Northampton. But bigger than that, we had guys in Birmingham, training in Birmingham. And you've got to be able to bring those guys together. We used to meet up 3 or 4 times a year over the weekend. And you do 4x4 meter relay weekends where you get the camaraderie and that bonding. Because actually, more important than, well, no, not more important. That'd be stupid. Look, so you've got to have the physical ability. You've got to train hard, got to work hard. But what's really important is that glue, is that bonhomie, that sense of brotherhood, that sense of in it together, that sense of do or die, there is no try. Knowing that I will not let you down. I'm going to do my gig, and I know that you do your gig, and then you've heard it before. That's when you get into that what's synergy, and it's a very weird thing, synergy, where 2 + 2 is not 4, but can be anything else. Where you tap into this woo-woo side, where you become bigger and better than yourselves.
Better than the sum of the parts.
But exactly that.
Great.
And there's a whole variety. So you've got your personal coaches, then you've got your event coaches.
Yeah.
And then you've got the head coach. And I've got to say, I had a few tech-to-techs, but the head coach for Team GB was vitally important. I remember one day, and it's but so much to you, but one day his name was Frank Dick, who was the national coach. And I was only just been in the team for a couple of years, and it was going to the Europa Cup, and I was petrified. I didn't feel like running. I said to him, Frank, it doesn't get any easier. And he just said, and that's why you're a champ, because you step in anyway. And it sounds so simple, but that quiet voice of the national coach saying, Akabusi, we trust in you and step in anyway. I went in there and I won that race and I got the points in Team GB, and Team GB won that event for the first time. That was in 1989. Wow. I'm just saying, so you've got different levels of coaches and they've all got their different impact. Yeah,
and what you said earlier about, I think it was about marginal gains, like Dave Brailsford, who run the cycling team.
Yes,
there's a theory about that where once you've got these elite athletes with the best equipment and everything else, it's about little tiny tweaks that make the difference. And I'm sure the same applies to football. Leadership is critical. I think that's what you just said is a prime example of where good leadership can pay instant dividends. And I think what we've seen at West Ham is a massive, very different types of leadership. We won't go back as far as Pellegrini, but let's look at the last two first of all. So we had, first of all, David Moyes, and I think his leadership style was odd, to say the least, in that he wanted to be the manager of everything, the boss of everything, but not really the manager of everything or the coach of everything. So he focused on a small group of players. He looked after them. Anybody who was outside of that group of players, he didn't even talk to, didn't even make eye contact with. And that was the biggest example of that was Pablo Fornals, who was part of the core group. And in the last season, we brought in Ward-Prowse. Fornals was kicked out and he was now outside the group. We played away at Bournemouth. He scored an overhead kick and burst into tears because he was an emotional kid and the emotions clearly got to him, which I thought that kind of treatment of players was unforgivable. So what's your take on it?
Well, as you, I'm going to take you off because I don't know the minutiae, but certainly if you create an us and a them, how do you integrate the them when you need them to be part of us?
Yes.
Simple. How do you integrate the them when you need them to be part of us? So it's a very weird way of putting your arm around players. And different people need different things.
Yes.
So if I had been a player and Moyes had me on the outside group, I'd have done everything possible and he would have been my antichrist. He'd have been my devil. He'd have been the person that I would stick his name on the wall and I'd flick the fingers at him every night. And I'd say, I would show you. And when I'm there and he tried to be nice, I would give him the lyrics.
Yeah.
So in a weird way, it might work for me.
Yeah.
Because I would be against you, but I would never, ever, ever then be for you.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but But if you've got somebody who's sensitive and they've gone from the us to them, well, he'll never be for you or for us ever again. You'll lose him. You'll lose his essence, his confidence, his sense of why am I here? You know, that family affair. People are motivated in different ways. So you can't have a broad brush sweeps all. You've got to know your individual people and what motivates them, what inspires them, what gets them up in the morning. And so, you know, you can't operate like that. Yeah. Well, I couldn't operate like that. I mean, you know, obviously, you know, Mr. Moyes has had some sort of success over time, so maybe he feels that's the best way. It's not the way I would operate.
Well, I think that's exactly than success. Go on, Chris.
It's exactly what happened to Fornals, though, isn't it? That's exactly because I think no matter what he did, and he did put in some stellar performances, he was always cast aside, and he was always put in positions that really weren't utilising, you know, his abilities. Right? I think we played him predominantly as a left defensive side midfielder for probably a big part of his career under David Moyes, and I think it's such a shame to see players like that go because I think we kind of took him in as West Ham fans as like one of our own. You know,
and he took us in.
Yeah,
he took us in.
Yeah, totally.
That's the thing. He took us in,
and he loved us. He loved the club.
Absolutely, the Spanish Cockney. You know, 100%. And you're right, and that is priceless. That sort of buy-in, you know, because again, we've got to remember, Tom Laughlin is a kid. When he came here, he was a kid. He was a young, impressionable kid. And he fell in love with West Ham. Now, if you can remember, you know, I mean, you'll have heard.
Yeah, who does that? Nobody does it, right? The foreigners, they don't do it. Sorry, carry on, Chris.
No, what I'm going to say is, you will have heard, well, maybe, have you heard of something called neural plasticity? Yeah. Neural plasticity about the brain. You have a growth spurt 0 to 7, and you have another one 16 to 25. And at 16 to 25, your brain adapts and reconfigures to the new environment. And he was a classic example of that brain, that Spanish brain, adapting and readjusting to this environment so that he became more Cockney than East London. and you've got and now a savvy manager buys into that and he keys into that. And what he does is he makes that person the conduit for any other Spanish-speaking players to understand what it's to be West Ham.
Yeah, exactly. I've never seen a player. We've seen the Di Canios and people like that who have bought into the club, but he totally bought into it. It was in his makeup, and I couldn't believe that you know, rather than being savvy and taking advantage of those skills, he went and sold him and bought Kalvin Phillips with the money. Kalvin Phillips,
mate. Honestly,
it's unforgivable.
I felt sorry for Kalvin Phillips because Kalvin Phillips, and I've said this before, you know, Kalvin Phillips for me was a classic supernova. We see them so many times in athletics. These are young kids who buy into wherever they are. Well, exactly. They buy into where they are. They believe in the manager. They believe in the team. They believe in the ethos, and they give everything. And they are on top of the world for 2 years, 18 months, 36 months, and then they're gone. Yeah. As opposed to the other end of the scale, like I was when you're the journeyman and you get better and better and better with age. So Kalvin Phillips had that time when he was with Bielsa, when he was with Leeds and Bielsa. And it was 100-mile-per-hour football, and you put yourself on the line, and he was phenomenal. And he covered the park, he crashed the tackles, he flicked the ball, he did the water carrying. He was Mr. Dependable for Leeds for 18 months, 36 months. But then he was gone. Yeah. And then what does our guy do? He goes, oh, I remember that guy. I liked him back then. He gets him into our team, and he's a shadow of the player he was. And that shows you that Mr. Moyes was not thinking. He wasn't in the here and now. He was in the there and then.
He was thinking of another Lingard, wasn't he? It was a Lingard fast, you know, it was his fast track pass to Europe or whatever. He was thinking it was gonna that was gonna be his ticket, and he wanted he bought him to replace Alvarez. Believe it or not,
it wasn't needed. It wasn't needed because that was probably one of the areas, one of the positions where we weren't really, you know, lacking depth or strength. We needed strikers, we needed defenders. This is what we needed.
Yeah.
Yet he takes in Phillips, who clearly is not the right type of player for us at that particular moment.
Well, also, see, the Lingard scenario was a completely different scenario. There, in the Lingard scenario, you had a guy that was isolated from Man United, who had everything to prove, who had the World Cup coming up. This is an opportunity with a mid-tier team to come in and be the big showman, and everyone there loves him. They're blowing smoke up his bottom, and he's very fortunate that we're playing in lockdown, so it's just him and the boys. And I'm sure that with Lingard, when the first 2 or 3 games went well, and everyone began to believe in him, he believed in himself more, and they believe in him. And it's a reverb. It's a reverb loop, and that happens too. When people believe in you, you believe in yourself. You step up. You know what I mean? So that was a completely different scenario. What happened with Kalvin Phillips? He comes out. The manager believes in him. He gets his very first ball. Duck part, goal. Duck part, goal. The rest of the players don't believe in him. He doesn't believe in himself. He comes to us, goal. Do you know? So he was in the reverse. Yeah. And the manager couldn't see it.
I think also though, Kriss, I would agree with you completely, because I think those first mistakes that he made, it completely ruined him, right? His confidence just completely sunk. But that being said, of course, he couldn't get into the Man City team. So really, mentally, you'd be thinking to yourself, him coming to West Ham, he's now going to get himself back the opportunity to show what he's all about, right? Get himself back in England squad. But it completely didn't work out that way for him at all. It really went completely opposite.
Chris, because he couldn't get into the Man City team because Pep Guardiola knew what we found out and what Ipswich know now. He ain't good enough, and I'm really sorry for missing. I'm always mindful that a player might listen to this. And
it's a human being.
I'm not having a go at Kalvin. He's been a phenomenal player for 36 months at the same level as Declan Rice for 36 months. But that was there and then. Right, Kalvin Phillips might be a great player if he drops down 2 or 3 divisions, and he could be a phenomenal player and have a lovely long career. But what we are saying is Pep Guardiola knew he ain't good enough for the first team, the second team, or even the 20 or the reserves, right? Yeah. We buy him, and he shows it to us. So clearly, when he's on the pitch, and look, fellas, you play sport. Sportsmen don't suffer falls. No. You make a couple of wickets, your mates are looking at you like, no, mate, ain't passing you the ball.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, Kalvin Phillips does have the talent, right? And we're wrong, but mentally he's not right, because we've seen that before as well. Because you've seen players like Ravel Morrison, prime example, one of the most talented kids in the world, but mentally it wasn't right for him, and he never really had the career he should have had. So you do sometimes wonder, because when you look at footballers nowadays with the money, the riches, the fame, the glory, all that kind of stuff, how does that impact a player's mentality, right? Yeah. I do often wonder that with certain players, and you just don't.
So, but with Kalvin Phillips, it's not about the talent. He's got the talent, but it's his legs, it's his pace. He got where he was because he believed in the manager, Bielsa. He believed in the system. It's just like Nottingham Forest. Not now. Yeah. They're playing way above their station because they believe in everything. Everyone, and it's connected, and it's synergy. Yeah. Phillips wasn't the greatest because he himself was the greatest, but he was immersed in a system with a manager and with a belief structure and with a synergy that was working for him. And then Man City take him out of that into a world of Galacticos, and they look at him. Well, you're not all that.
Yeah.
So it's not it's not that he hasn't got the talent. He was out of his orbit, out of his system, and his legs are gone. And when I say, it sounds absurd to say a young man, what is he, 26, 27, and legs are gone. But what I mean is, when you looked at the way he played for Leeds, that high intensity, crunching tackles, still got the ball, flicking it out to the players. You can't do that. No. Look, world-class athletes have a window. They have a 36-month window where you are top of your game. Now, for some kids, that is 17, 18, 19. And for some of us, it's when you're 31, 32, 33. Kalvin Phillips had it when he was 17, 18, 19, or whatever old he was at Leeds. And that was when he's at his zenith for all the reasons I've said before: manager, systems, players, and the momentum that Leeds had to get them into the Premier League.
Yeah,
that was his time.
So, let me ask you a question, Kriss. Right, so you've obviously mentioned about your career in athletics and how, I guess, kind of mental preparation is absolutely key, right, in order to be successful. So let's relate that to football and specifically West Ham. Right, do you think that would be one of the major flaws for our lack of success over the years? Because if you think about it and you look at some of the players that we've had over the years, we've had some phenomenal players. You could arguably say that we should have achieved a lot more than we have achieved at certain stages, right? Particularly over the course of the last 20, 30 years, putting aside, of course, the European Conference League. Do you think there's much merit in that, in saying that we should have achieved so much more if mentally they were in a better place? You know, they were better prepared.
So one of our best teams that was the least talented was the Pardew team.
Right.
The Pardew team with Marlon Harewood, Rio Coca, Bobby Samora. Yeah, it was, but that team was nowhere near as good as the team we've got now, as far as individual talent is concerned. Yeah. But what you had there is you had the manager that was able to speak to them, tweak them up, and get them so fired up and believe in each other that they were synergistic. I was there when we went to Arsenal. We smacked them off the park.
I know.
That time. Were you there?
So Campbell went home at half time, didn't he?
Exactly. Bobby Samora. Giving him some of that. He wasn't having it. Marlon Harewood, Rio Coca was bossing that. Even someone like Hayden Mullins, who is not the most gifted, but he had his job and he did his job. So,
he took Mascherano out of the team, you know. I mean, this is the thing. And so when you're talking about talent for talent, this is all about a mentality thing, isn't it? It really is.
Or do you remember when Harry Redknapp bought, I think it was Harry, bought Kitson and Hartson? Yeah. Kitson and Hartson. And those two boys come together and they knew, you're going to be our saviours, boys. We're going down without you. And both those boys bought into it. Flippy Kitson. And they were scoring every other game. And then all of a sudden, we're not leaking goals in defence because we've got boys scoring in attack. That team, brilliant. They believed in each other. Now, fast forward into Moyes' team, Haller, Skamaka, brilliant players, but have not got the manager believing in them or operating the team in the way that they can operate. And we're a shadow of the team we're supposed to be.
So do you think this all comes down to a manager and essentially leadership style here? Is it because it's got to be more than that, right? Because I think ultimately, as a top athlete and as a top football player, mentally you're going to want to do it, right? You're going to want to achieve. So what's this really coming down to? Is it down to the leadership style that they're not getting the best out of their players? What do you think it comes down to?
It's not one thing. It's all got to come together. But there's no doubt about it. The shadow of the leader. It all comes down from you. The shadow of the leader goes far and wide. And he or she has got to build harmony. And if I'm not in that team, I've got to want that team to do well. And I've got to be ready to step in when I am required. Just look at Mr. Potter in the last 2 months. The same team as Pellegrini had. Not Pellegrini, pardon me, what I'm talking about. Lopetegui had, right?
Yeah.
But, mate, oh, God, I mean, I went to that Fulham game. Oh, mate, they were absolute lions, mate. Absolute
chalk and cheese, isn't it?
Paqueta, what a beast! I'm surprised how big he is. He's much bigger than awful. But what a beast, man!
When he's in the mood, and he's having fun, I mean, he's different class. We went to Chelsea last week. Half a team, and the performance they put on there. I mean, that would have been the first excuse for Moyes or Lopetegui. I need players. Potter's thinking, I've got players. I've just got to play them in a certain system. Get them to talk to each other. Get them to work together.
So true. And his mentality is totally different because he's much more of an all-inclusive, right? Bringing the whole group together, as opposed to Lopetegui or Moyes, who had his little
Well,
clique. You know, it was very, very different.
So what he's good at doing, he sees those individual players, and he's able to motivate them to do their bit for the team. I tell you, it was a great Kufal. Soufal,
Yeah.
centre back.
Yeah.
He's got Soufal playing centre back, and he's made Soufal think he's a man mountain, and nothing's coming past him. He's almost he's that James Collins in disguise.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of a sudden, no. I don't want you running up that right. I don't want you. You're not a halfback. You're not a.
Yeah. You'll embarrass yourself. You'll embarrass yourself. Yeah.
Don't worry. They're going to cover you. You're not going to be lost of speed. But mate, nobody's coming. Don't worry, Gaffer. Don't worry, Gaffer. You can trust me. Yeah. And all of a sudden,
you can see it working their socks off, can't you? You can see it happening so much more. They look more organised, more disciplined. They're working harder. You know, it's funny because when you talk about, you know, that type of leadership style, for me, and you mentioned about Pardew, the one that I really look back on, and I think he was given a bit of a tough time with Slaven Bilic because he took to his players like they were brothers, didn't he? You know, like it was so different. And I really wish he was given more time. I know Gal does.
Pardew, I really like Pardew. I mean, my favourite game.
Bilic.
Bilic. I do. He was fired much too soon. He's fired much too soon. Yeah.
Chris, you're my man. I absolutely love Bilic. I love Bilic. Like I said, a passionate fella, heart on the sleeve. The only downside for Bilic is I think players could pull the wool over his eyes because Bilic,
too nice.
His downside was he wanted to be liked too much from his players. You've got to have a nasty streak as a leader. You've got to be able to put your foot down. But I love Bilic, and he was not. He done all the hard work, got us from our Mecca to this Tim Pop Stadium, and then got fired. That was naughty.
Yeah. It really was.
He was given a real bad.
When you look at that season, what actually happened was Moyes took over. So there was 18 games, 19 games, half the games. So Bilic had half the games. He got so many points, say 18 points, maybe around there. He was fired. Moyes came in. He was given Bowen and Souček, and he achieved exactly the same number of points with the remaining games, whatever that was. We weren't going down. We weren't going down.
No, I agree with you. I think it was 19 points. I agree with you. Bilic and Bilic. I mean, you saw when he. I mean, Bilic almost cried when he had to let Paya go.
I know. Yeah.
He almost, it was like losing his son. Yeah. And what happened to Pablo Fornells would never have happened under Bilic.
You see the way Bilic reacted when we left Upton Park. You could see his eyes at the United game. You know, it meant the world to him.
He felt it. He lived it. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, again, another foreigner that's come in and has taken to West Ham. I mean, funny enough, I used to have an apartment at Chelsea Harbour, and at this time I was still going to West Ham as a young kid. I mean, not a young kid. This was like, and Bilic was a young player, and I bumped. We both had an apartment at Chelsea Harbour. I bumped into him back then. This is back like in the noughties, and we bumped into him, and he was passionate West Ham then. He had a bit of a thick accent back then, but you knew the boy. He loved London. He loved West Ham.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I
think a lot of
this trend. Can I just say, there's this trend I've noticed, not only with foreign players, but players in general. They never really leave West Ham if they hang around for a few years. You went to the final in Prague. There's like Marlon Airwood popping up. There's all sorts of old names just mixing with a crowd. They never seem to go away. Once you're in, you're in.
Yeah, it's a family, though, isn't it? Yeah, it's family. Yeah. Because I mean, every club says their fans are special and their fans, but it's in our DNA. You see, West Ham for me is a proper football club with working class roots, ironwork. The real football clubs were around shipyards, ironworks, real blue collar labouring, and that is in your DNA. It's obviously even the pavement is West Ham. The pavement's and that is a travesty, to be fair, of where we are in Stratford from Upton Park, from the bowling, because.
How did you become West Ham, Chris?
So I went on. There's a guy called Terry Fagg. He might even be listening to this. He was a young, So I was. I used to. Well, I can't even tell you it was sport. Anyway, it was 1969. I went on a holiday to Clacton went to a caravan in Clacton, and the guy called Tony Fag, and in his caravan, he had the current West Ham team up there, and I saw Clyde Best and Eddie Coker, 2 black guys, and at that time there was no black guys in the first division. And Terry was so passionate West Ham. You know when you meet one of those guys, he just drips West Ham, and every time we'd go out, he'd be West Ham, West Ham, West Ham, West Ham. He was Grace and Greece, West Ham, West Ham, and that was it. I was hooked. Went to my first game that year, and mate, I was hooked. I know he lives up the north of England now somewhere, but I bumped into him once. Not Burnley. It was Wigan, Wigan away, West Ham. I bumped into him, said, "Oh, it's still old Terry, mate." You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it was fantastic.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. It's good that you credit him for it as well. It's good.
Yeah. So, lovely lad, mate. Lovely lad. West Ham.
So Chris, I interrupted you. You were about to say something. That Chris, the less important Chris. Sorry, Chris.
No, very important.
The insignificant one. Yeah. Number 12. I can't even remember what I was going to say now.
Okay, well,
my mind's escaped.
What I wanted to ask,
you can see my focus is gone.
We've spoken about leadership. I think it's very clear the impact that Potter has on this club, what he's having in terms of treating every person as an individual, taking a general interest in what they're good at, where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are, and trying to play to their strengths, which seems pretty bloody obvious to me. Who would have thought? But there are some youngsters coming through. Now, these youngsters, they've just been ignored by the last 2 managers, right? They won the FA Youth Cup, they won the Regional League, they were brilliant. So many young stars coming out of there. Finally, there's a route through to the first team. Well, how must they be feeling? But the second part of the question is Luis Guilherme, who as I announced the other night, I adopted Mavropanos previously. I've cast him aside now into the shadows. I've now adopted Luis Guilherme as my special project. He's going to be the new Pele. I'm sure of it, right? Did you see that 3-minute cameo? Did you see that 3-minute cameo?
Yeah. So I didn't. I've been away. I've been playing golf in Spain, so I didn't see it. But mate. What I would say to you, mate, is this: you are spot on. If you want a vibrant trickle through of West Ham blood, it's going to be from our academy. And just like, if you immerse a white shirt in red dye, that red dye slowly comes up and becomes claret. That's what you need to do. You need to be immersed. They need to be around everywhere. In Team GB, you have your young kids come into the team as reserves in the relays and the 4x4, just to experience what it's like to be in the changing room, what it's like to be in the briefing room, what it's like to be on the bus, what it's like to go into stadium, just experience, so that when your time comes, you are ready to rip off hubcaps. You're going to break through walls because you know what it means, and everyone's got your back. And that was a travesty of what we didn't do over the last dozen years, bringing through these young kids. It's been, and again, hats off to Potter. It's been just amazing. How many has he blooded in the last 2 months? 2 months. Absolutely amazing. He gets it.
Yeah, and the Guilherme came on the other night. He started off really bright when he first got a couple of bench appearances. After the club had written him off in the media and said how rubbish he was, he got a couple of little chances. He hit the post once, and then by the end of the Lopetegui reign, his head was down. Right, he's like he's 18 years old, just moved out of his country for the first time, and the club and the coach are not interested in him. And then suddenly this new coach comes in, he's interested in him. He bounced onto the pitch the other night against Chelsea. Immediately, he's playing further up the pitch. They give him the ball. His greatest asset is his pace. He's fast, really fast. So don't give him the ball inside your own half and get him to beat 3 men. Give him the ball where he's got 1-on-1 against a foot race against the fullback. And that's pretty much what he did the other night. And he made a mistake, right? He made a mistake. He immediately put that mistake right, but then he made another mistake. It wasn't really a mistake, it was bad luck. But he beat a fullback, he played the ball in, the ball bounced back off the fullback onto him, out for a goal kick. He was visibly annoyed. He was annoyed, irritated, threw the ball down. But this is where the difference came. He channeled it into positivity and aggression, and he went after Chelsea almost single-handed for the next few minutes. That is why Chris won't buy it yet, but that is why he's going to be the next.
I'll reserve judgment for the moment, Chris, because we've not seen enough of him. And I think one thing that we are guilty of a lot as West Ham fans over the years is that, and it's not so much the West Ham fans, but maybe it's a lot of it's coming out of the club, is we start kind of putting these young players on pedestals. And I don't think we should be doing that, because then suddenly that kind of expectation, it kind of transcends on all the fans. We're all thinking, do you know what, he's going to be the next best thing. So for me, I just kind of feel we should let these players go about their business, quietly, bring them into the team, but not put too much expectation, because, you need to look at like last season. George Earthy comes in, he scores a goal. Everyone's like, oh yeah, he's going to be our new number 10. He can't get into the Bristol team at the moment, right? So I think we need to be a bit careful sometimes about what we say about these youngsters, because I think they're at that age where, irrespective of talent, it can go one way or the other, because it's all about, as you said, the mentality of these guys. As well.
But what matters more than anything, more than fans, anything, is the manager and the playing staff. We've all seen it, and I don't know why, but Frankie Lampard gets a real hard time I don't know why, but there's that thing where Harry Redknapp has that young boy there. One of the supporters gives him a hard time, and then Harry absolutely roasts that supporter and says, "I tell you what." And how do you think Frank Lampard felt when his gaffer, he's only a young kid, tells you, mate, you don't know what you're talking about. This kid, if Potter believes in Gameri, if he believes him, and the players believe in him, that boy will soar. Now, the players will not blow smoke up your backside. If you're not good enough, that you will tell, you know why? They won't give him the ball.
Yeah.
So simple. If the players don't give him the ball, you know he's not good enough. But the players give him the ball, especially in touch. Look at Declan Rice. Declan Rice comes on board in our team. He makes a couple of mistakes, but his boys still give him the ball. That means they know something we don't. He's good enough. But you remember Reece Oxford? Now don't give him the ball. So you're quite flash. You ain't got no knickers, son.
Yeah.
It's a shame what happened to him, actually, because he was a kid with a load of talent, wasn't he? And I think he's out in Germany, and I don't really know what more has happened to him since. I think he's at Augsburg or something.
I don't think he's top Premier League, is he? I'm Bundesliga. No. But, I mean, you find your level. But just say, we will know whether this Brazilian kid is any good, because the players will tell you how good he is, because they'll give him the ball.
Yes.
You at this level, you don't get into the relay team because you look good, your mum's got money. No, you get into the relay team because you're fast and you cross that line first. It's exactly the same in the football team. You don't get in that football team and players don't pass to you unless you are so good. I can rely on you. I can put my sandwiches on you, mate.
Yeah. No.
Do you think these young kids nowadays, Chris, and again, I don't know if you would know this necessarily, but do you think that they get enough support? Because obviously being young kids, talented, coming through a system, are they being supported enough mentally? Because I would imagine when you're a kid, like when we're kids, we kind of go through a lot of changes, right? Thinking they're going to make it, and perhaps maybe they actually put them on the pedestal like the club do, right, with a lot of these players. Do you think that really impacts these kids? And do you think we do? Do you think the club do enough to support?
So look, I tell you, look. One thing is if a kid gets into the West Ham first, even on the bench, he's been through the ringer, because the vast majority of kids don't make it anywhere near being paid to play football, let alone get in the Premier League. So somebody somewhere is supporting them. It's how you keep their feet on the ground while they've actually been that 2% that's got through the academy. Now it seems to me, I would listen to Mr. Potter on the podcast, on the Ironcast. Did you hear?
Yeah. Very good, yeah.
And it's brilliant. And he was talking about his time in Scandinavia. Moreover, doing a professional qualification, like an MBA or something. And he talks about being with businessmen and all sorts of people and what he learned. And he learned then about different styles and different. So if we've got anybody to be the right person, it's Potter, because he would understand how to inspire those young kids to want to give the extra mile to make it in the first. You ain't done yet, son. You've only just put on your boots. You haven't done up your laces yet, mate.
And that brings us to Evan Ferguson, because Evan Ferguson is a prime example of someone who's got the raw materials, been likened to the likes of Arnautovic and maybe a Johnny Artson in the fact that he burst through defenders, basically. Got a little turn of pace. He signed a new contract at Brighton and immediately went off the boil and then had some serious injuries. He's back to almost, well, he's not fit, at least he wasn't when he arrived with us. The word on the street is that Tony Bloom, who runs Brighton, wanted him specifically to come to West Ham so that Graham Potter could put the wheels back on the car again.
Yeah. So this is the thing that I've got with Ferguson. Young kid, bright talent, obviously. He's back with his mentor in Potter, the guy that got it out of him first time round. However, it's a new dispensation, a new team, and you're not a kid anymore. No. So, question for me is, how do we ensure that he stays injury-free? And my answer would be, you've got to treat him like a thoroughbred and not a cart horse. Yes. I had this conversation offline with you. I don't understand football sometimes. We've got these multi-million-pound players, and we treat them like cart horses. We had this problem with Antonio. We're playing him week in, week out, and wonder why he gets injured. Mate, Ferguson is a thoroughbred. Fast twitch fibers. His muscles, they react so quickly. Now, if you get a piece of string, and you not a piece of, if you get 10 pieces of string and you do that, they get knotted up. If you stress them like that week in, week out, they're gonna bust. So the club have got to know when to use Ferguson and when not. I'm hoping that Potter has got more dendrites up here than the previous managers. Because if you play him week in, week out, he will not last a season. You've got to choose when he's on and when he's off. What period of the game is he on and when is he off? We began to learn that with Antonio. If you remember, what began to happen, we started switching him from centre forward to out of the flanks, give him some time. Because the legs, when you've got fast twitch fibers, they've got to cool down. You've got to cool them down. You can't be on all the time. So I'm really surprised. I look at football and I wonder, they need to get athletes in there, athlete coaches in there, and support their thoroughbreds and don't treat them like cart horses.
Yeah, well, it's amazing because
somebody was injured.
Well, no. It's just that the physiology, the body makeup of the footballer these days is more like that. Exactly what you're describing. You know, you only have to go back 20 years to when like Wayne Rooney first burst onto the scene. They were more muscular and more robust. They're not like that anymore, are they?
No, they've trained so hard. They're so lean. And we've got to look at them properly. I mean, I honestly, I do not understand how we expect Premier League football. I know people go, they get paid a lot of money. They should be able to get 2 games in. But no, mate, because they're playing 2 games, not against you and me across at the flats over there, Wandsworth Flats. Yeah. They're playing against top-class players week in, week out. Really, if you've got 25, I said this to you offline, if you've got 25 players, you should have 2 teams, and they should be peaking at different times for 10-week periods. So team 1 is ready for this for 10 weeks, and this one is 10 weeks behind, and they take over, give or take a little bit. But you can't look at not our team. Look at Man City, Rodri. They've absolutely bled that kid dry. He's now no good. He's out of the team. The team's gone to rats. So you've got to think. We got to think of these guys as thoroughbred athletes. And if I said to you, I'm going to run the Olympics every single month, you say, shut up, Chris. Don't be stupid. It's the Olympics. You've got the very best people in the world. You want to race them every month? Shut up. But that's what we do here with our players.
Yeah. And the way you've explained that, right, just kind of takes me back to our Europa League campaign when we got to the quarters, right? Because we're talking here really that if we would have had that depth and that squad depth, I think we would have won that competition. I've said it so many times, and it's so frustrating because you're absolutely right. If only we had that depth, Because as you said, Gail, earlier on, Moyes always relied on his, 11, 12, 13 players. Outside of that, there was no one that he could really trust. Maybe he could have trusted if he actually gave them more game time and made them feel a bit more loved. But I mean, you look back on it, you think, God damn, that was one opportunity. Opportunity we've had. I'm 45 this year. In 45 years, we've won one trophy. The last time we won, a domestic cup was the year that I was born. And I look back on those moments, and we've had no success in my lifetime. I don't know if it was me being a bad omen, but I look at that and I think, damn, that was so close. So close. That and the FA Cup final in 2006. But that Europa League campaign, we would not have had a better chance of winning a trophy if, as you said, Chris, we had more strength in depth. We utilised a bigger squad, so we could have a fast striker coming in when we had no striker or a left back when Cresswell was getting sent off. All of those things. So frustrating. It's moments, isn't it? It's all about moments. You look at the windows. We could have signed players in windows. It could have made that difference. So frustrating.
I can't top what you said, Chris. That's a perfect articulation. If Moyes had the presence of mind to bring players in and out, and even in the squad that he had, if some of those guys who were number 16, 17, 18th in the team, if they played a little bit more in the team, so that when they stepped in, that everybody trusted them, we could have actually won it. Frankfurt were not our level. Neither was Rangers.
They weren't. No. We could have done them. That was a golden chance. A golden chance for the trophy.
Absolutely agree. 100%.
And then you're talking Champions League the next season, right? This is the thing. Like these little moments you have in the January transfer windows where it could have all turned around our fortunes, because it could have. And we have those moments. So we've spoken about this many times, haven't we, Gail? Like, it seems to me we have these moments every now and again. You look at the season when we left the bowling. We were doing really well. There's been a few times when we come close on the cusp of Champions League, and then we've just fallen into Europe or fallen outside of Europe so many times. But for me, it's always that January window where we've screwed up, where we could have done a bit of investment, built the squad, bolstered it up, added some strength in, and then we could have challenged. But we always stop. It's almost like we get nosebleeds. It's like we've got this to this level. Right, let's stop. This is not, we should be going this high. We should be challenging for this. That's what it feels like.
Was that the year? I was just trying to think. When did we have like Norvite? We had Norvite, and we bought a load of
that was when we moved into the stadium the first year, 2016-17.
Yeah, and that was just like, because I remember in 2016, I remember going up to Manchester United with West Ham. I don't know if it was the couple was in the league, but I remember it was the first time in a long time Pye was going up there, thinking we got a chance. Really believing we could beat them. So confident. I think it was 2-2, if I can remember rightly, in the end. It was a great game. Pye did a lovely free kick. And we had a phenomenal team. And in the end of the season, we spent a load of money on a load of rubbish. Rather than getting 2 or 3 world-class players. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember this well, because I think that the game you're referring to, I think, was the FA Cup, right? And I think Pye scored a free kick. I think it finished 1-1. But I remember that, obviously that season, I think it was the season that we moved to the London Stadium. That was criminal, because you look, right, obviously all these big promises and everything else, right? We moved to that stadium. We've just finished on a high at the bowling. Yeah. And you've got someone like Payet. And I know that Dimitri Payet, they were saying that, he had his head turned after when he was, I think it was in the Euros or the World Cup. I can't remember where he was phenomenal. He came back and he wasn't the same player. But if you look at it from Dimitri Payet's perspective, he knows that he's on another level. Yeah. He comes back to West Ham pre-season and he sees us signing Nordveit, Kaleri, all of these players.
Zaza,
all these players. You've got to be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, what am I doing? So you can say, okay, he could have been more professional, perhaps. Yeah. But you look at it and you think, looking back, you could kind of understand if you're a top player at the top of your game and you're seeing your club signing those players meant to be 100%. Moving to the next level. What are you thinking? What would you be thinking?
Again, Chris, you've absolutely nailed it, mate. I can
Stop
guarantee
telling him that,
you.
Chris. Stop telling him that. Stop telling him that.
My head's getting bigger now, Chris. What can I say? Gary won't like it.
You cannot fool the players. If you're Payet and you look in the change room, or
Zaza's pulling his shirt on.
or you think, okay, I'm going to give him a go, and you ping him a ball and it bounces off of him.
Yeah. You
can't. A world-class sportsman know world-class sportsmen, and they respect world-class sportsmen. I remember there was a guy when we were in athletics. It was in LA, and there was like Edwin Moses, Danny Harris, and there's a guy called Marcus Adams who was a Commonwealth champion. And I love Marcus, so this is not, but Marcus Adams, Commonwealth champion, and we're all training together, and we're all doing the banter. You know what blokes are all banter, and then he's giving banter. We said, Marcus, you're not even number 3 in England. What are you talking about? Because and Marcus, please forgive me very much, because I love Marcus. But what I'm trying to say is, sportsmen are brutal.
Yeah.
So Pye's looking at him and thinking, Zaza. You're spot on. He's going to his agent, get me out of here. They got Zaza, mate.
Yeah.
Get me out of here.
Insulting. He was truly world class. The first time I can remember us having a truly world class player.
Yeah, and if you promise him the world when you to get there, and you give him your back garden, he's going to go, get me out of here. Yeah.
But it was destiny that he would land on that last night at that last year at the bowling to make it magical.
Yeah.
You remember that ridiculous gravity defying free kick that he took against Palace, where they had 11 men in the ball. Yeah.
Absolutely. How many times did your jaw drop? How many times when you saw what he did? And what was it? Remember that little jinky one he did against Blackburn or whatever it was?
Yeah.
And he fell down and got back up again. And the boy did it again. And he went,
Every time the guy got a free kick, it was like a goal. You'd think, oh, wait a minute, we got a goal here.
It was like a penalty. It was.
Yeah.
And I used to laugh as well, because I remember we went to Bournemouth, and we played Bournemouth, and then there was it was Pyatt, and there was Enna Valencia, and then Pyatt sticks one in, and Valencia goes, "What, I'm having to go?" Boom! He sticks one in. And you've got these guys trying world class feats because of this fella here, and it was and you like your mate, your jaw just drops.
It makes players better though as well, doesn't it? This is the thing. I mean, you look at you're playing with
Chiati was a world beater.
Yeah, no, they were. I mean, we had some incredible players that season. We really did. But if you would not have Pyatt in that team, they wouldn't have been anywhere near that level. That's the funny thing about it. Yeah, but it did make Zaza good though, did it?
That's right.
You will say you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. That's the point, isn't it?
It all ended so sadly with Astra bleeding Gugu, wasn't it? We got knocked out by them.
I think the last moment I saw a Pyatt was probably when he scored a free kick against Accrington Stanley, if that memory serves me correct. I don't know. It was around about then, and that was in the last minute of the game. Accrington Stanley and Pyatt's up there scoring a free kick last minute of the game, London Stadium. It's such a sad exit.
How sad.
I know.
But anyway, let's wrap this up, because I could talk to you all night, Chris. This is just a little bit addictive. But thanks for coming on. This has been really interesting to hear it from an actual elite sportsman to tell us what's going on.
Thank you.
Interesting points and some blinding points from Chris, as you pointed out. So that was good.
I can't believe it. Gary never admits to this, Chris. He doesn't. I've got to ask you just one question. I've got to ask you, though, Chris.
Hey, Gary, you are our illustrious leader. Great leadership, Gary. Great leadership, son.
Too late, Chris. Too little, too late. Sorry.
I'm never going to be asked on again. But why did I go in the Bobby Moore stand?
Chris, how do you want the season to end now? Bearing in mind we've got another 3-4 months left of the season. What's your expectations?
All my expectations are low, to be fair. I'm not expecting I'm not expecting European football, for example, but I'd love to see a decent run. I'd love to see us beat one or two of the big. I want to beat Spurs, not big.
Beat
Spurs, beat Arsenal, beat Man United. Go out and beat a team, have a little bit of a run, finish on 48 points, and have a sense. I want to have a sense that next year is worth waiting for. Akabusi, get your season ticket. Don't miss out. I want FOMO. I want fear of missing out. That's what I want.
Get back. You need to get back. Get down to the Bobby Moore stand.
That's where you need to be.
I've got friends there now. The Bobby Moore stand. Forget the full sandwiches. I'm at the Bobby Moore stand.
Yes. Don't do the posh seats. It's terrible. But anyway, thank you very much, Chris. Really appreciate you joining us. Thanks to you, Chris, as well. And let's play the outro.